So, knowing yay, three. Uh, s- just want to give thanks to Stephanie Donovan, who's our producer and coordinator for these affinity groups, and she lets us in. Thank you, Stephanie. I want to give thanks to our DVULI staff. We've got some liaisons on board here. We have Misael Guzman, Eric Johnson, and of course Gerald Bell. And Sheldon works at the office with everybody down there. And so I just want to say hi to all of you and welcome you guys to being a part of this. I'll introduce our moderator in a moment, but first I want to let you know that we are recording the session. You probably just heard that. If you haven't yet consented to being recorded, your presence gives us your full consent to make this session available on our YouTube page. We just want to say thank you for that. Next, I want to share with you our Affinity Dialogue ground rules. Number one, please keep your audio muted unless talking. Number two, please keep your video unmuted. For the sake of transparency, healthy engagement, and so our moderator can witness nonverbal communication, we want you to keep that unmuted. If your background where you're based has anything that would be considered appropriate or not God honoring, we ask that you would blur your background video now. When speaking, please introduce yourself, your city, and the year you graduated. It's always fun to see who's on this call with us, what year you graduated. Please keep your questions or comments to less than a minute. Use the chat for positive reactions, resources, or contact information. In fact, we would love for all of you to drop your name into the chat so that we can better serve you. So if you would do that sometime during the course of this call, we would appreciate that. If you are in transit, do not use the chat. In fact, please keep your eyes on the road, or better yet, pull over and park. We have this disclaimer. DVULI is not responsible for any harm while you are on this call and choosing to drive. And so just want you to be very aware of that. Next, there will be no AI permission given because we're recording this and you will be sent a link of this conversation. If there's anyone from your team that is not a DVULI alumnus, please make sure that they get introduced. Now it's my pleasure to introduce to you Mate Taylor, who will be leading this discussion. And I just want to just say thank you, Matu, for your willingness to do so.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Hello, everybody. It's morning here for me in Los Angeles, California. Still, I am DVULI. I was a city coordinator class of 2019. So happy to be here with you guys today and to see so many familiar faces and to make some new friends as we have this discussion, which is very relevant for many reasons for all of us, and we can find some community around it. So um, I'd like to go ahead and move into um, our questions. We have some questions to help facilitate conversation. Ground rules have already been provided, so I'm sure everyone understands how we'll move forward together. And then again, if you want to use the raise your hand feature or something like that to also help us or drop something in the chat, we'll be looking at that to make sure we also hear your voice or see your comments. So the first question I want to kind of put out there for discussion, if it's okay, to all of you, is want to share, if you guys could share maybe the top three situations you're seeing impact your youth's mental health. The top three situations you see impacting your youth's mental health.
I'm not shy, so I'll kick us off.
Hey, Samantha.
I'm Samantha, Twin Cities, class of 2008. Anywho, so I work with youth both in ministry and as my full-time job. And right now I'm seeing a lot of students who are dealing with the worries of immigration. I live in Texas, in Austin, Texas. And so there are a lot of students who are, dealing with the burden of going to school and maybe not coming home, or their parents are not coming to school and responding to anything because the fears of being taken by ICE. Also, there is a lot of depression that goes along with the youth that I work with. Just if we're looking at the youth and the whole person, all of the financial, the food insecurity, housing security, all of that plays a role in their depression. And then the other thing that I think rounds that out would be a lot more suicide. And definitely in suicide, it's getting younger. You know, I've seen children as young as 8 talking about suicide. So those would be the three things that I think are plaguing the population that I'm currently working with.
Hey, Matu, I
Yeah.
actually just spoke at a public school this morning, and I'll just tell you what I detected from the conversation I had with high school students here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Identity is affecting mental health, poor family support, and dare I say, this brings tears to my eyes just thinking about it. Um, Hunger. I mean, that the kids came in and every single snack that was out was gone and they were
Mm,
wanting more. And it was just, it was heart-wrenching. Yeah. So, yeah, those three: identity, poor family support, and hunger. Or as Samantha said, food insecurity.
yeah.
So,
Anyone else?
so I'll jump in really quick. Hi, everybody. Kim Moore, Louisville. And so we just had this conversation this morning at work. And so the top three things I deal with is, as Joel will tell you, I deal with young people impacted by gun violence. Along with that comes trauma, very little family support and community support. And so young men and women, living in neighborhoods where people are trying to kill them, and they're impacted with no safe spaces. And so just really quick, we just had a meeting with our mayor and there are no safe spaces hardly where young people could gather without something happen. If you Google Louisville, you will see a big fight last week on one of our walking bridges in one of our most prominent areas where you could take this bridge from Louisville to Indiana. The fight ended on the Indiana side because the laws are different. And you fight over
Mm,
in Indiana, you're not going to get out. You fight in Louisville, your mom come get you. You're probably not even going to jail. So just dealing with, a young man just left my office in a wheelchair, impacted by gun violence, but whole family doesn't see anything wrong with their behavior. When you have a woman who 3 of her sons have been killed, and she go to Aruba the day after her son got killed, you know, that's devastating for me doing this
yeah.
work.
Yeah. Thank you, Kimberly, for sharing. I also see, and if I say your name wrong, please correct me because people mess my name up all the time. I see from Misael Guzman. I hate if I'm messing it up. I'm sorry. That he sees a growing fragmentation in the family unit, so that there's a lack of stability and guidance and consistent presence in the home, which is causing a lot of challenges for youth to be able to navigate complex emotional components of their lives. And so he has provided something in the chat that kind of speaks to some of what we've already said. Does anybody else have something that they want to add to the conversation?
Yeah, I'll add,
I was just,
Matu.
Sure.
One of the things that I see is that the kids, youth, even adults, they always are on, whether it's on their phone or at home, or, like Kim has shared in her community, just to provide like safety or get food. There's just never that like be still.
Hmm.
And so I think just from a mental capacity for our kiddos, they don't have that time to reflect and renew. That I think maybe some of us that are ahead of technology or behind in technology, however you want to say it, have the benefit of experiencing.
And
Yeah.
so one of the things I read where he talked about the influence of social media, we have had 39 murders in the last year connected to a war on social media about words.
Hmm.
And they're not just killing the people they're trying to kill, they're shooting people's mothers, they're shooting people's fathers. Back in the day, if somebody had an issue with you, they had an issue with you. In Louisville, Kentucky, if they got an issue with you now, they got an issue with your whole family.
Mm. Cozy, were you gonna did you want to share something around the situation you see?
I think definitely with social media, here in Memphis, the ministry where I work with we deal with human trafficking, so that's our specialization. So we're dealing with both youth and adults that are coming from that complex trauma exploitation. So definitely one of the precursors is the poverty issue in our city. Definitely is impacting, the mental health, the confidence, the esteem of youth, that are navigating, as Cheryl said, if they're hungry, going to school, then that definitely impacts everything, as well as social media, where people are lurking and they're having, tons of inappropriate interaction, with people via social media. In addition to, excuse me, in addition to the community violence, like issue, because that just sets kind of this backstage of, how I walk into environments. And so if my community feels unsafe, then, like my guards are up all the time about, trying to protect myself when I walk into any environment. So I think those are definitely things that we see as kind of primary when it comes to our youth in Memphis.
Can I
Interesting.
add?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Um, so I'm Monica Flowers. I'm here in Louisville as well. What I see is a lot of the stigmatism for mental health, where a lot of people don't want to deal with it. Parents feel like I'm not putting my kid on medication. I'm not doing that. Um, just a lot of, I think there need to be more awareness of what mental health is and what mental health, how it can help you. And I think we lack that here in our city. Um, a lot of youths may be diagnosed with ADHD or any other um, mental illness, depression, and things like that, but they overlook it. So just bringing that awareness to our city and letting our kids know that it's okay, that and not putting that stigmatism on it.
Yeah, that's good. We've got a pretty extensive list here and a lot of similarities, a lot of overlap, a lot of agreement, even though we're representing different cities. And thank you for shouting out your city because it helps with context as well. And I want to let you know as we go through this conversation, we are taking notes so that we can give that to you and provide that later for further reference and resourcing. I'd like to add before we go to the next one, being here where I am and Eric as well. I see he's on the call, but I know he's in the car. We are, in addition to fire, we call it fire and ice, because we do serve in the area where the Eaton Canyon fire took place. So we're also seeing young people dealing with a major disaster on top of a major issue just in the country that is causing a lot of the same things you guys have shared. So thank you. To move us along, I'd like to ask a next question because you guys are experts here out here in the field making it happen. How do you resource youth when they experience these impacts? What are some of the ways that you're resourcing the young people?
Time spent being a listening ear as much as possible. And that might be in some small group setting. That might be in a one-on-one. The one-on-ones are probably more prevalent because that's when they're more willing to divulge more. And and it really kind of depends. It just depends on who's in the small group and how much they've been able to talk on their own without an adult present at all. But I think the start is just being a listening ear and not making any prognosis or diagnosis, just listening and allowing them to put whatever it is that they have that they're battling to whatever degree they can articulate it, but just being a listening ear.
It's
So
good.
I'll kind of chime in on what Gerald said. For us, it's about resources Like if I'm dealing with a youth that's impacted by systemic racism, community violence, poverty, we have some money set aside. And so if I'm talking to a kid and he's 18, I also want to talk to his mother. I want to talk to his family. I want to know where he come from. I want to talk about what a holistic approach looks like for the whole family. And I, like Gerald, I'm not a therapist, but we got a team of therapists that we refer out to for the last 10 years. And so, I'm going to mom saying, what do you need? Because it's real hard for me to ask little Johnny to show up and be on time when he's living with his mother and their LG&E's off, utilities are off, and she's a drug addict and dad's in prison, and it's no sustainability in that house. So my team and I love going in, wrapping services around families, making them sustainable, not just getting therapy for the child or the young adult, but offering therapy to the whole family. So holistically, everybody can treat their own trauma because little Johnny's just getting from his mother what his mother got from her mother and on down the line. And if nobody breaks that cycle, then nobody will get healthy. That means I have to have some difficult conversations sometimes. You got a gun, we got to talk about why. It's a possibility if it's a body on that gun, we got to talk to some other people who don't look like me in uniforms. And everybody knows that when you come to talk to me. So it's just about setting the standard of what the expectation is from young people. And I think talking directly to them and not at them. Like, all around the country, everybody's talking about what's going on with young people, but how many young people are at the table to talk about what's going on with them?
Thank you.
I just kind of want to touch on what was said previously. I think it's huge when you talk about we want to help young people, but we're not bringing them to the table. So when I'm talking to the young people, because I just had a similar experience, I do Bible study with the youth at the detention center, and the question was posed, well, is my mom's, the student has two moms, are they living in sin? And like as someone who has been in ministry, who has grown up in it, who am I to tell this person who doesn't know God that they're wrong? Like, that's an immediate shutdown. That's an immediate, like, I'm no longer listening to you. Yes, I know what the Bible says, but I'm here to plant the seed. And so when we're talking to our young people, when we're engaging them, we got to meet them where they're at. And I think a lot of times listening to them and meeting them where they're at and letting them have the conversation and finding the answers for themselves. Yes, we guide them. We kind of hey, well, the Bible says here, if you read here, but sometimes they're not even ready for that. We got to get to them where they're at. And so, again, talking to them where they're at, listening to them and bringing them to the table, that's going to be number one, because then we can help advocate for them in the next stage. Because you're right, Kimberly, they're not going to therapy. They don't believe in therapy. They can't afford therapy. Why do you need to tell somebody about our business outside of the house? These are all things that we hear. But if we don't start to, plant those seeds and have those conversations just in a like small setting where they feel comfortable, then we're gonna continue to have these same issues, and we're not gonna solve it. We're just gonna keep being on this hamster wheel.
Speaking of bringing young people to the table, one of the things I do is take them to a table and feed them. Sometimes
Mm.
that's the best way to be able to get young people to open up and talk. And food is always a hit. It worked for me, still working for me. And sometimes just that simple, that caring, I think of Revelation 3:20, where Jesus said, Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone will open up, I will come in and sup with him. And so sometimes just as simple as a meal. And we talked about hunger being an issue. It's a great place to start.
I think we really in need of mentorship, strong mentorship, where you have one-on-ones with these kids and able to guide them on a regular basis, not just a once a month kind of thing, but somebody who's there that can be a part of their life, who they can call and talk to, and they know they can trust this person, and that person is able to give them sound advice. Just that one-on-one mentorship. We know we have these groups that offer mentorship to organizations, but just working on that one-on-one kind of mentorship, just like the movie Forge. I keep bringing that up, that movie Forge, where that mentorship was one-on-one.
Mm.
That whole listening thing, I appreciate that, Monica, and I've said this earlier, but it's a skill and it requires some patience. And if the youth worker is not a therapist, is not an MSW or what have you, or a license, whatever, that the patience to just be a listener and allow that child or that young person to really exhaust what's going on. And it's easy sometimes to want to interject, perhaps even want to try to tell them what they should be thinking. Put all that aside. One of my mentors, Denard Franklin, is on right now, and I will tell you this. Years ago, we would go and sit at the Kaufman Foundation over lunch, and I'd be talking and sharing and divulging and being transparent, and he would just stare and keep looking, which meant I wasn't done, and that meant I need to muster up the courage to keep talking and or go ahead and go to the next level. And so that whole patience of just knowing that, okay, I hear what you're saying, but there's more. And the willingness to be that listener in those kind of conversations leads to the growth, leads to the help. And if there's a deeper need for more professional care and what have you, you got something to work with at that point.
Mhm. Thank you.
I echo that, Gerald, and just was gonna say, I mean, to what everyone has said about listening, to be curious with youth. I think they are tired of being like judged by their behaviors and those kinds of things. But how can we approach them, with curiosity, expressing care and concern for them for sure, but letting them kind of inform the conversation and inform how things, go in those conversations. And so I think that's what we have really learned over time. I know I have, instead of being accusatory, instead of being, this parent figure, for them is really, trying to one, just affirming youth, and walking into the situation and letting them know, like, hey, I see you. I want to hear from you. I want to know what you need. You tell me. And so I know, as Gerald was saying, that's hard sometimes for us because a lot of times those of us that, are trying to help, we do a lot of talking. And so, but what we've seen is when we do less talking, allowing the youth to express themselves, how they can express themselves, because they are going to be the ones that, are going to be the what's important to make the change necessary. And so, like, what, how do they think? How do they think even about our policies and how, we're offering them services. I definitely agree with Phil on food. It is definitely a motivator. And so, sometimes that's the first, couple minutes of, like, okay, let's go and get you this Chick-fil-A or, whatever else it is, because that can sometimes break that ice. So I really think it's truly relational, and then just keeping at the forefront that these youth, they can control and they can be truly the motivators for them own selves and other youth, and so just seeing it from that aspect, like, how can I encourage them, and so that they can kind of figure it out on their own.
That kind of leads me
That's
to a question, Matu, and I'm sorry to jump in, but y'all got my juices flowing today. Um, when does the youth worker tell their story? Because
mm,
sometimes it is appropriate and sometimes it's not.
Mhm.
And while you want to be a listener and you want to, encourage and kind of, I'll just say, invoke openness and transparency. And sometimes the way to do that is to say, okay, well, here's what I went through when I was your age, or, sometimes trying to relate doesn't get it. I don't know. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know what the profession recommends in that regard, but I feel like there's enough expertise on this call for me to have something a little bit better to walk away with when I go to church on Sunday and see my young people. And so I didn't want
So
to waste.
that question, like, so I got my own therapist because I deal with my own trauma when I lose people. And one of the things she talks about is God's divine timing is everything. You'll know when it's time to tell. Like when a kid is sitting in front of me talking about my mother's a drug addict, my dad's in jail, he's not involved in my life, and they're mad at their mother, and I'll say, I'm a recovering drug addict. I had a son who was just like you. And so I got myself together. And so that's the reason I come back to give back to young people what people gave to my kids. Because it was really a village. And you asked, when you tell your story when you're healed, you don't tell your story when you're still crying and you're still trauma filled and you're not on the other side of what happened to you. Because all that does, in my opinion, and my therapist says it, is it re-traumatizes the kids that you're talking to.
Mhm.
And so I think sometimes people try to correct before they connect. So
Good.
I really believe you can't correct a young person until you've made a connection with them. And it's really about building relationships. And that's really like a slippery slope, here in Louisville, because, my work is around gun and gang violence. So I'm dealing with the ops. I'm dealing with two young boys who are the ops. So I got to find a creative way to get them in the same room to have a conversation. And that sometimes comes with me telling my story. Like for the people on this call don't know, I'm 28 years sober. I'm doing some work in Louisville with some police officers who locked me up in the 90s. So I get to kind of tell that story at the appropriate time. And you just got to kind of gauge it when it's appropriate and when it's not appropriate, because some of the stuff we tell people, they can use it against us or try anyway. That's the reason I tell my own story so I don't have to worry about anybody else telling it. So I think God's divine timing is really important when you decide what you're going to reveal. All public, disclosure sometime when too in depth and too graphic don't help the situation.
Guzman, did you want to make a
Yeah,
comment there?
I did. First of all, Kimberly, thank you for that insight in your life. I commend you for all the work that you're doing in your space. And, you brought up something really important. Gerald's mentioned about, what I bring on Sunday. I think one of the things we need to keep at the forefront also is that real change, sustainable change, never happens from, and I think we all at least on this call understand this. It doesn't happen from the pulpit or in front of a classroom. It really happens on the one-on-one, right? Oftentimes there's a reason why Jesus had the 72, the 12, and the three, right? Like there's a difference in relational. And I think I don't want to mispronounce her name. Kasi mentioned, sorry if I mispronounce your name, but you mentioned trends relational, right? Anything done from the pulpit, anything done from the front of a classroom, we can inspire from there. We can deposit curiosity from there. But I think real change happens when we're doing the one-on-ones, when we're doing the things like Phil mentioned, sitting down and having breaking bread with individuals. I have the honor and the privilege of leading and discipling a group of men every Monday night. But I don't focus on specific age group. What I try to do, my method is to have peers that are around my age, maybe a little older, who are veterans in the faith, right? Veterans in street knowledge, right? And then young folks. We had a young man who's 16 years old that joined our call this past Monday. And I try to invite these men and really kind of help foster a network because I know that I may not be able to reach all of them, but I know that if each and every one of the men who I've been discipling over the years have do their part in speaking into one of these young men, whether it's, hey, let's go out for a cup of coffee. Hey, let's go, you know what? I'm gonna rent out a gym and we're gonna invite a couple of your friends for basketball. Oftentimes when I did you when I was a youth pastor for about 12, 13 years, um, for the most part, my ministry was done at a high school gym on Thursday nights for 15 years. It was never inside. Like my real impact, although we had youth ministry, we had youth service and all that, my real work really did happen in the schools. And so, again, I just wanted to kind of chime in and share some of that thought and commend those that have spoken so far with all the good work that they're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much. Stephanie,
I,
I'd like to,
yeah,
before we kind of go to the next question, I know you have a different lens to kind of bring and would love to hear maybe what your
yeah.
thoughts are around that, this
So
topic.
I just want to put out there, like, I think that as youth directors and I've been a youth director, I've worked with youth and mental health for a lot of years prior to working at DVULI. One of the things I want to say is like that first line of mentoring and caring for kids is so critical, but we also need to know the scope and know our lane. So when there are kids that need more professional help, there are people that are trained to provide that as well. So knowing what those resources are within your community is really key to helping the youth. What's not everyone is gonna, take a class and be like, oh, hey, I know all of this about trauma. Like there are people who specialize in that. So really knowing like your kids and helping to assess that, and then knowing what their needs are, and that may be outside of what you can give, and that's okay. You might be that conduit for them to say, okay, mental health is okay. I need to think about this in the context of my life. So yeah, I think destigmatizing getting services is really key within our communities because nobody wants to have the label of that person, or we've done a lot of harm to receiving services in our communities, and I think that that's a key start. So having those like key relationships, knowing where people are mentally, but then also knowing what resources are out there professionally for them.
Yeah. Which takes me to the next question. And Kimberly, you kind of alluded to it a little bit. You know, we're helping our young people navigate systems that we know are not necessarily in the business of wanting to help our kids navigate those systems, right? There's just inherently some things in those systems that are just wrong. And yet they are the best resource sometimes that we have beyond ourselves or that the young person and the family need to navigate. I love to hear us talk a little bit about how do we support youth as they navigate these different systems. So, of course, I'm alluding to the institutional government system, but there's also the professional. How do we professionally support them? And then there's also the personal. I think we've talked a little bit about the personal, but I'd love for us to kind of get into how do we help them navigate, professionally and these institutions for their own good and their own mental health.
So you're gonna make me jump out of my seat when you ask that question. One of the things I've been able to do, and I tell you, one of my proudest moments in my 25 years of this work, is I've been able to grab some lawyers, some very prominent lawyers across the state of Kentucky. And
Mm.
so I went and said, you've made money. Now, do you want to make a difference? And so if a young kid, poor, impoverished, come from a crime-ridden neighborhood, gets in trouble, and I think he may get a bad deal just because he's poor and doesn't look like other people, we have some lawyers that take those cases pro bono. And so just recently, a kid beat a first-degree assault charge that he really didn't do because we got a lawyer that really jumped in, and they don't just jump in and give mediocre services. I
Mm.
said, if you're going to represent the kids I work with, I want it to be your best of your best, just like you represent somebody's family member who gave you 25 grand. And two of the lawyers are on our board, and they're like, they're all in. And so I've been able to go to our mayor, our attorney general's on my speed dial, and they want to see our city change. And so as we speak, we're navigating it to bring people together for something to do with juveniles. Because I don't know if you all know, Louisville convened the first juvenile call-in ever last year, where we were able to bring juveniles to the table with their parents, with their watches on their leg, with their charges pending. And so just being able to get people to buy in that these kids are valuable, and then to convince these young people to know that they're full of potential, purpose, and promise. I always call it the three P's. So that's my that's my wheelhouse. That's my passion. Gerald's been in my office, which is in one of our most violent and impoverished areas in the state of Kentucky. But I put my office there. I could have put it anywhere. I had money, but I wanted to put it in the neighborhood where I did drugs at 30 years ago to come back and circle back around and help the people in the neighborhood where I caused harm.
Great. Scott, we see your hand.
Yeah, I think kind of going along with that, I think teaching youth how to advocate on behalf of themselves is like absolutely essential. I think like even in the mental health space, when you're talking about when a youth is like vulnerably sharing or like wanting that assistance and that help to overcome some of the barriers that they're experiencing, and they step into a space, and whether they have the feeling or it's just outright like a bad experience, to empower the youth to be able to kind of stand up for themselves and be like, you know what, this is wrong, or like I just don't know about this, can I get somebody else to help me through this, is really essential. I think us as adults have to work through that as well, because like I've had really crappy counselors before, and it's like, well, do I continue with that thinking, or this is, I guess, what I'm going to get, or this is like my chance of being vulnerable, and or like I'm never going to do this again because it didn't work out. And so, how do we teach that advocacy and that point of, hey, it might not work out, but like keep pressing forward, keep like trying to find the right resources for yourself, in the professional space as well, but also, in the mental health space is essential.
Thank you.
Can I just mention, I want to kind of go what Scott was saying, like teach our students and our juveniles how to advocate for themselves, but we also have to be willing to walk through that with them because we are the trusted person that has brought them to this table. And so they're going to rely heavy on us because we're the known face. We're the ones that are advocating for, trust your PO or trust your counselor. They know what's best. So when our students or our youth say, "Hey, when I was talking to my PO, they didn't listen to me," it's going back and saying, "Hey, so I'm hearing what you're saying. Now let me help you kind of navigate and let me show you how I would handle that situation." So we have to be able to model that this is an okay situation and a safe situation as well, so that they're trusting of these services. Because I've been in courtrooms and I've been in situations where the youth is like, "You said do this," and they're not listening to me.
Right.
So now I need to stand up and say, "Hey, now my student said this or my client said this, and I need you to hear what they're saying." And they then have to, take a pause, and we all have to listen. So and
Good.
I
I saw. Go ahead.
Somebody else, I mean, somebody else want to say?
No, no, you. It's all you.
Okay. So what comes to mind for me is us being in the political arena, us knowing when we should be lobbying and looking out for our youth up in the in front and well in our capital is Frankfurt, where we go and we lobby and we talk about there's a couple of of bills that are going through right now that are focused on juveniles and what to do with them because there's so much of violence and gun violence is going on and things like that. We also had a judge who kind of reduced a kid's sentence. I think he was 24, 25, but still he's young, and they wanted to give him 65 years. And she said, no, we're not going to do 65 years. And of course, they got mad at her and decided that they were going to investigate all her cases and kind of demonize her as being, is she a good judge? But she was looking more out for the kid and hey, this kid's going to get out. If we give him 65 years, he's not going to get out until he's 80 something years old. And from my viewpoint is like I mean your life is over, you might as well gave him life, but he did do some hindrance. His crime was horrible or whatever, but just having judges that are able to be able to use their skills and make sound decisions. So just looking at the legislature, making sure we advocating and calling our people in Congress and letting them know. So just keep an eye out on that.
It's good.
I got a couple of thoughts too, and yeah, I think they're all running together now because we've been talking about so many different things. But I just was gonna say earlier on the piece, lived experience is very important. We can really impact folks by our lived experience. I think but you gotta have the boundary. There's a boundary there. Like when you start to cross over a boundary and to become dependent on the student to kind of soothe your wounds, then that can come create an issue. So you always want to have your mentors, like we learned through DeVos, to help us with those wounds while we minister and share those lived experiences with that boundary. And then for the systems piece, I was thinking about basically youth workers should always learn about where your mental health resources are available, right? So there's a lot of money out there based on like the county or the state. Um, a lot of folks, young people that we work with, might have Medicaid. In California, we call it Medi-Cal. That's kind of where you access your mental health resources, and you always want to know know those laws and know those avenues and know those resources so that you can point them in that direction so that they can access those mental health services, because a lot of times it's going to come through their insurance. That makes sense.
Yeah.
um, Also in our state, I know youth can like apply for their own Medi-Cal, so they can do an application and get their own health insurance if they're restricted from it. So there's all these different loopholes, and I'm just suggesting that you got to do your research and find those things out.
No, that's really great, Stephen, because it really speaks to where we need to know the road to help somebody navigate it, right? So the question is, how do you help them navigate it? It means you kind of like a shepherd need to kind of go out ahead and know the landscape and know what are good resources, who are people you could trust, and then kind of to Kimberly's point, you know, find you some people you could trust and give them some mandates and some deliverables of how you need them to help.
Yeah, you
That's
might
really
want to
good.
have insight. And then, oh yeah,
Yeah.
one other thing: tell your youth if they get a therapist that they don't trust, then go get
They can
another
think.
one,
Yeah,
because therapy never works if you don't trust a therapist, and that's for everybody.
it's good. That's really good. I want to look at the chat and make sure I'm not missing
Mhm.
anything. People got some good comments in there. You might want to go check them out. Um,
Can I
some
add to Matu?
absolutely.
I was just going to share, just going along with what Steven said, as far as doing the research about providers. I think one, in even being a good advocate, is that doing that and really finding people um, who are relating, to the specific youth that you have, who are going to be affirming for those youth, is a part of that advocacy. But I think as well with the mental health challenge, and talking about therapy and those kinds of things, if you've been in therapy, giving that experience, because I think, like, yes, there we look for other environments to, market these services, but counseling is hard, therapy is hard, and so giving realistic expectations about what it can look like, what is going to be that journey, as you're walking alongside your youth or whoever you're serving. I think is important, as well, because sometimes we send people, or make referrals to environments, and we don't have a good sense of what it's gonna look like, like you're talking to somebody about potentially some of the most heartbreaking things that have happened to you. And of course, you want a trusting relationship. You want, to be able to have a provider that you can tell, those innermost things to. And so, setting the stage for that, I think is super important, as well, so that when, your youth are coming back and giving feedback about how it was, or they feel comfortable in even giving you that feedback about how the process is going and how the relationship is going. And like when it comes to mental health, because we've talked about suicide in this call too, the things that like will be things that you have to report, that will, if you need to get mobile crisis involved, if you need to get, somebody to assess, the situation to a higher degree. So I think, informed consent, as well as, just arming our youth with as much information to, like helps the process. And that's what we've seen, to be some things that help youth to stay engaged.
That's good.
Yeah.
I
I
want to
know
hear
race.
Eric's voice. I see you. I want to
Okay.
hear Eric's voice before we then go to our last question for time so that we can wrap in a way that is helpful to all of us. Eric?
Okay. Just in short, and piggybacking on what was just shared, I think the most important thing for all of us is with our presence and the trusted relationship that we've built in the preparation piece of whatever it is, whether it's for therapy or advocacy, is to really help the student be able to articulate what it is that they really want. I know the worst therapy sessions I've had is because I went in full of emotions and hadn't even asked what it is that I want to get out of this. And so, if we can help them simplify what it is that they really want and what it is that they don't know, um, instead of us problem solving it for them, it is just helping them to see what is the direction that they want to take, what is this that they really, really want to do, so that we can provide the proper resource alongside of them, and then prepare them like what that pathway looks like based on what it is that they want. With all the things that we're faced, I mean, as Matu shared, and I just recently, and I have shared this with Matu, um, the report that we're getting back from the school district in terms of where the mental health is of our and the social emotional health of our students are right now after a year of this disaster and 10 years of long-term recovery. It's a they Students want to know why um, no one is speaking out about injustice, why teachers aren't allowing that conversation. Some teachers are not allowing that conversation in class. They're looking for um, not just listening voices, but also in that to help them formulate how they can move forward. So all that to say, it's just simply helping them format what it is that they really want so that it's really clear to them and so that they know the way forward.
Right. So in these last few minutes, and there's already one that's put in the chat from Gerald, I want to talk about resources. He has here Restoring Brilliance, Healing Trauma, Reclaiming Self, Becoming Whole by the one and only on here, Dr. Bernard Franklin. But with that, is what professional development resources should be on everybody's radar. I just shared one, it's in the chat. That should be on everybody's radar. But let's share some other ones. And it can be seminars, conference, book, article, podcast. But what's some gems that we can share with each other as resources?
Can I just interject here a minute?
Absolutely.
I recommend for everyone that I work with, The Body Keeps the Score. As a book, I use it when I teach the brain trauma. It is a resource you should have, everyone on the call should have. You should read it. We should even maybe do a book club where we talk about chapter by chapter by chapter. but we really need to understand that trauma resides in the body. And if we're going to help our young people, we have to understand we can't dance it out. We can't worship it out with good music. We can't do all the things we want to do. We have to recognize that that trauma's in the body, and we
Mm,
figure out what other prescriptions we use. I also just want to highlight, I've appreciated listening to you all. I want to reinforce listening because one of the things in my work, I was therapist for the Kansas City Chiefs about 1998 to 2004. This was a little period before Super Bowl and Super Bowl rings, so I don't have a ring, but I still claim my influence on them. They taught me how to listen. I didn't know football. I didn't know in the sense of playing football, but what they taught me was I needed to listen because what they needed to do was to vomit. And so many times we come in, we know what they need, we know what they want, and we want to give it right away. And you all have said some of that. But friends, there are probably three things that humans need. They need to be heard, they need to be seen, and they need to be affirmed. When you stop and listen to people, you do some of that. And just to reinforce the listening piece, there's a great amount of research that's coming out now about listening, and third world countries are advancing in it. When you get a minute, do a Google search around friendship bench, friendship benches. Friendship benches created by an African in South Africa after all of the horrible events that came out of South Africa. Um, there's also a friendship bench movement in India. These are places where there are not large concentrations of therapists, but friendship benches simply means somebody sits on that bench to listen to another person vomit. I can't tell you how important it is for us to close our mouths and allow young people and even adults to vomit. Just get the stuff out. I just finished time with Uncornered, Kimberly, which serves to reduce gang violence in Boston, Providence, Rhode Island, and Kansas City. I worked with them for about 3 years, and it was enough. I did it. I can't do any more. And I say this, and I'm gonna wrap up here in a minute. Fridge, understand that less than 1% of all therapists in America are African American men. Less than 1% of all therapists, and even less for brown men, Latino men, less than 1%. Not all of those less than 1% want to serve this population. Many of my brothers that I challenge here in Boston, they're in the insurance mode. They won't talk to the guys we serve because the guys we serve don't have insurance. And so we need to understand that. And I wish DeVos would work with us to figure out some way that we entice young men to get into the counseling psychology field
mm,
because we're losing it. And we need to have people who look like us that can sit with the young men and women that you're talking about. So I'll stop there, but you all have highlighted so many things that I would want to come back and just have a conversation around. And then I'm going to throw this out and I'm stopping. The number one leading cause of death, just a reminder, 14 to 25 in the urban community is suicide. Number one leading cause of death for Black boys, 14 to 25, is suicide. Number two leading cause of death, same population. No, number one is homicide.
mm,
Homicide. Number two is suicide. What we're speculating for this population is they don't have anybody to talk to. And most often they don't leave a note. And so if they're not leaving a note, they don't have anybody to talk to. What might be what they're trying to hide or overcome? And so there's great speculation that a lot of tough boys who are look like tough boys, are dealing with same-sex attraction and they have nowhere to go. Our community is, I'm not getting into the biblical stand on this. Our community is homophobic, and a lot of our young brothers don't have a place to go. They can't talk to anybody. They can't talk to grandma. They can't talk to you because they automatically assume that you're
So
going to make it sinful. And so we just have to figure out how we have these hard conversations so that we can redeem our community.
thank you so much. This has been so rich, and just to value our time. I know we do go over a little sometimes. So what I'm going to do is try to keep us from that and ask if you have any resources, if you could drop them in the chat, because we all need to hear about them. It's 11 o'clock right now. And I know I actually need to go to a meeting soon, and I'm sure you all do. If not, I hope you're taking some time for yourself. That'd be nice as well. Um, but I do want to turn it back over to Phil to close us out. I want to thank you so much for all of your input. Please keep putting things in the chat. If you have a book, a podcast, keep typing them because we can still get that information to one another. And just thank you for this time. Phil.
Stephanie, yeah, I was going to give it to Stephanie, and then I'll pray out.
Oh, okay, very good.
Yeah. So I have been taking notes. This has also been recorded, so it will be posted on the website. I'll send out an email as well. Um, I want to, Bernard, you lightly talked about your book. This is an amazing book that is written in a very accessible way for, yeah, I would say anyone, but in particular, I think the group, Bernard, if I'm correct, that you're looking at are young men.
Yes. So the sixth grade
But
reading.
yeah, it's written at a very accessible, but not in a way that's like makes it fluffy. Like it's full of content, full of really helpful information. Bernard is very candid in his story within the book, so I think that just is a really opening piece to it. So 5 star from Stephanie on this book. Please pick it up. It's not long. It's great. You can use it with your youth. So that will be in the chat as well. So I just wanted to put that out there. Also, next month, we're going to be talking about supporting youth in athletics. So if you're a coach or if you work with youth in athletics or know people that do, feel free to show them the DVULI website, watch for the socials, and we're going to be doing the youth in athletics conversation next month. Okay, Phil.
You pray. I just got to say this really fast, all right? Bernard, you're on it. This particular kind of forum would, I mean, just warm Mr. DeVos's heart if he were alive today to see this. And so convening you all, I mean, if I just had like a week with y'all in a room, I know we would walk out the door with phenomenal content, resources, curated, all kind of stuff. I'm going to have those conversations and see how far down the road we can get. All right? I'm done.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you for each one of these participants on this call today, as they have been carrying each other's burdens, carrying the burdens of young people. You said in your word that in that way, as we carry each other's burdens, we fulfill the law of Christ. Father, I thank you that as my brothers and sisters are fulfilling their precious law of love, would you bless and continue to show them favor and blessings, Lord, especially for the young people that we serve. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Love y'all. Thank you for coming.
Take care. Thank you.
So, Stephanie, do we get a copy of the meeting? You say you're
Yeah,
gonna send?
yep, I will. Yep, I'll
Okay,
send it out to you. Yep.
that's good. Thank
So
you.
good seeing you, Monica. Good seeing you
See
too, Kim. We'll talk to
you
y'all
later.
later.